name is Abby and welcome to this video all about how to program and plan for students with special needs. So there are a range of resources to help you plan and program for students with special needs. Now, I would firstly recommend using the backwards by design principles. As educators, we can sometimes fall into a trap of finding an activity first and then trying to link to the curriculum or learning outcomes. Backwards by design principles flip this. It's about starting with the end in mind. Now, there are three main components to the backwards by design process. So, number one, identify the desired results. What should the student know, understand, and be able to do? Think big picture. What is the end aim of what you're wanting to teach? Number two, determine acceptable evidence. How will we know if the student has achieved the desired results and met the standards? What will we accept as evidence of understanding and proficiency? Think of the assessment methods you will use. Now, number three, plan the learning experience and instruction. So what knowledge and skills will the student need to develop to achieve the desired results? What activities will equip the student with the needed knowledge and skills? What will need to be taught and in what order? Is the overall design progressive and effective? Okay, so you have your how, but what about the what? What should you teach? Well, my suggestion is start with the student's year level and work back from there. Look at the Australian curriculum year level and what are the key concepts to teach. If you think these are at the level of the student's understanding, then think about what modifications you would need to put in place. Would they need assistive technology to complete any of the tasks? Would they need the concept broken down further? Map out the steps to learn the concept. Really break it down. If you think the concepts are at the year level are too challenging, then look at the year level below. Again, break down the concepts into smaller steps as to how you would teach it and what modifications may be needed. You may want to look at the literacy and numeracy continuums on the Australian curriculum website. This really breaks down concepts into smaller steps. Okay, let's have a look at an example. So say you have a student, let's call them Tom, and they're wanting to learn to write their name. Now, we're going to really break it down. What are those individual steps when learning name writing? So, number one would be to hold the pencil and to track in between two lines. Then from there, draw straight lines. From there, track the letter T with arrows as prompts. Then write T using arrows as prompts. Then write T with only starting prompt. Okay, so we've got T sorted. Now we need to work on O. So we want to be able to draw circles. So track the letter O with arrows as prompts. Write O with only a starting prompt. Okay, so we've got O sorted now. Now we want to have a look at the letter M. So we want to be able to draw curved lines. Then we want to track the letter M with arrows as prompts. Then we want to write the letter M with arrows as prompts. Then we want to write M with only a starting prompt. Then we want to write M with no prompts. Then we want to write Tom, his full name, with arrow prompts. Then from there, we want Tom to write his name with the visual of his name when asked to write his name. And then lastly, putting it all together, we want Tom to be able to write his name with no prompts when asked to write his name. Now, as you can see, there were a lot of different steps and it was really broken down into each of those key things along the way. So that's what we need to be thinking about too, especially when concepts take longer to develop. It's looking at, okay, what are each of these key progressions? Now, this does bring me to my next point about keeping things age appropriate and functional. If you are working with a student who's in year 10 with an intellectual disability and they haven't mastered writing their name, then don't set this as a goal. It means they may have been stuck practicing letter formation for over 10 years already, day in, day out. Think about what an achievable goal could be. Could they use predictive text on a keyboard, on a computer or a device? Could they be taught how to use text-to-speech on a device rather than still being given those same old level 1 readers? when they are this old. We must also be aware of whether resources and teaching materials we are providing are age appropriate. It may be okay for a 5-year-old student to be looking at Wiggles books, but when they're 15, this is no longer age appropriate. Think about what could be used that's more age appropriate if you're wanting to read with a student. Perhaps use a non-fiction text that has photos and not cartoons. Think about what is functional for this student to be learning. Is this a skill that will lead to other more complex skills that will be beneficial to them in the future? If it's a student with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, that you are teaching, think about how you can really incorporate the student's interests into the activity to keep the student motivated and engaged. So, Tom's practicing writing his name. Perhaps put his favourite toy on there. If he loves Thomas the Tank Engine, then put Thomas the Tank Engine on the page. So that will increase his motivation. And this is an important skill when you're planning for all students. Looking at the content and then thinking about how you can keep the student motivated and engaged. So, if the student you're teaching has an intellectual disability and hasn't developed the skills at foundation in the Australian curriculum, then I would suggest looking at the ABLES curriculum. Now, what is ABLES? Well, ABLES stands for Ability-Based Learning and Educational Supports. It was developed by the Victorian Education Department and is accessible for use in South Australia. You can log in with the school number. Now, there's a focus on 4 learning areas. So we've got English, speaking and listening, English, reading and writing, personal learning, and interpersonal development. And it really breaks down and focuses on key skills and concepts development prior to the foundation level in the Australian curriculum. There are teaching strategies, guidance reports, and student progress can be tracked. So, all students with a verified disability in South Australia who attend department schools have a one child, one plan written. This is commonly known as a one plan. So the one plan shows specific goals and target areas for the student. So it includes an overview, so the learning achievements, learning strengths and growth points. It includes information about the child's background. It includes information about the services involved. So whether they have a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist, if there's other people involved. It also includes perspectives. So that from the teacher, from the student, parent carer, guardian, or different services and agencies. It also has aims and goals, which are smarter goals and adjustments that are to be put into place. It has support, so provided by the site, and then notes and agreed actions, so additional information. So the one plan is a really good starting point in regards to finding out what goals the student has and what things to work on with them. Okay, so my 3 takeaway points about planning. So number 1, start with the end in mind. Look at what adaptations or modifications may be needed. Number 2, ensure the skill that you are teaching is functional and relevant. There's no point completing an activity just because. And number 3, find out what other supports are involved and what goals there may be that you can incorporate into your teaching. Thanks for listening.